Okay, I think we can start while the others join in. I think there's only couple of you there, Arnav and Hamza. So were you guys in the last class as well? Okay, so
Yes,
Vaibhav has
sir.
joined in.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
So do you have any queries or concerns regarding the previous class? What did we? Can
Um,
someone recall what did we study there?
so we studied the point process and the Poisson point process and
Mm-hmm.
some properties of that, means what we
Mm-hmm.
can use inside of it. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, in point, we have studied some statistical measures of point process,
Mm-hmm.
like expectation measure and probability generating functions.
Right.
And so before that, we studied the random counting measures and
Mm-hmm.
marked point process. And we did some numericals also in the examples.
Mm-hmm. So
And the
all these
last,
things are clear on your side, or there is some confusion or something which is not apparent in the beginning or something like this.
these are all things are clear.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
But,
Yeah, Badri. Yes.
Sir, I had a question, sir. So, mark, you express a mark point process,
Mm-hmm.
mark QI.
Mm-hmm.
So, sir, how I was imagining this was so, if we consider some fixed, like for example, a forest example you gave, or for example, let's say we fix the base station example you gave.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the randomness is coming from our choice of origin, right? Like for example, I consider the forest as a trees are fixed, but considering my location where I am and where how I'm looking at my surrounding, the
Mm-hmm.
this is relative distribution of the points around me will change. Hence, that another way you're imagining, like okay, origin is fixed, kind of like if we look at from origin, and the
Mm-hmm.
ball you're throwing around, that is another way of looking at it. Like
Right.
okay, so
So,
QI then is associated with, like if I concretely talk in terms of that forest example only, then QI
mm-hmm.
is associated with each tree of that forest, or is QI associated with each point with respect to a point with respect to the origin? Because each tree may take a different representation based on which my origin is, right?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, let me try to explain it in a different way. Okay, so even we before we go into this business of marks, right? So, what we will be dealing with throughout this course are something called homogeneous Poisson or homogeneous point processes. What does a homogeneous point process mean? It means that they are, I mean, similar to what you have studied before in stochastic processes, they are translationally and rotationally invariant. Okay, which means that if you shift the point process with a fixed, let's say, point, which means what you translate each of these points by a fixed value, right? If I say fixed value is 1 comma 0, which means for each of these points, if of a realization of the point process, you translate in the x direction 1 unit and keep the y unit the same. That's translating by 1 comma 0, right? So we will be dealing with processes which are translationally invariant and similarly rotationally invariant. Now, what does that mean? So, suppose if I come to this forest example, so suppose you imagine a very large forest. Okay, um, regardless of I mean, by large it means that it goes until infinite in all possible directions. Okay, now imagine yourself to be at the center of this Euclidean plane, okay, or the Cartesian plane. Then around you, what properties you see of this point process, right? Which means, I mean, what do I mean by property? It can be many things. It can be what is the distance to my nearest tree. It can be how much tall the nearest tree is, how much wide the nearest tree is, and so on. How many trees are present within 10 meters of me? These are the different type of properties of a point process, right? It can be infinite number of properties. Now, a homogeneous Poisson point process means if you move yourself from the origin to any other point, now you are located, let's say, at 5 comma 5. Now, from your perspective, again, if you look at those properties, right, if those properties do not change, even if you have moved from 0 0 to 5 comma 5, you will say that it's a translationally invariant point process. So here I have moved the perspective. It's the same as saying that all of the points have moved by minus 5 comma minus 5. It's the same as moving a perspective to 5 comma 5. Okay. Now, why we are studying this type of processes here? Because so there are two ways to look into it. One is, from if you are fixing yourself at the origin, right? Okay, let's talk about the first way first. One is that you are observing from the origin, then going at 5,5, then you are observing from that 5,5 again, then you are moving yourself to a different location, a third location, let's say minus 10,5 or something, and you are observing the property from there as well, right? The let's say relative spatial configuration of these trees which you see around you constitutes what we call the stochastic process, right? Because if you are only fixing yourself in 0,0 in a given forest, your things around you are not changing, right? The nearest tree is still at 10 meters if you are located at a fixed point. Okay, so one way to think about this point process is, if you have a random point of observation in this forest, the properties around you, how they fluctuate randomly, is what constitutes this point process. Another way to look at it is, suppose you are fixing yourself at 0,0, right? Now you are imagining different realizations of the forest, which means you are dropping these trees around you and you're looking at these trees. Nearest one is at 10 meter, it's of height 20 meters, it's of width, let's say 2 meters or something like that. And then you make all of these trees disappear and you imagine a new forest around you, right? So the first way of looking at the point process is equivalent to the second way of looking at the point process for homogeneous Poisson point processes. Now, to come to your question, right, when we are talking about mark point process, it's not a property of where you are located, but the property of, so a mark associated with a point, right, might not necessarily be depending on where your origin is or where your perspective is, which means that okay, you can have a let's say it depends on what the mark is actually. So suppose I gave two examples in the previous class. One was independent identically distributed marks, which is the height and the width of the trees, right? So this was not dependent on where the origin is. Whenever you choose a point, it has associated with itself a certain height and width with it, right? On the other example which I gave, which was the powers of transmission of the base stations, depending on the user location, and then it mattered where you are located, right? So both ways are possible, and in both ways, the both visualizations which I discussed previously, is that your random location of observation point and random realization of the point process itself, both possibility of visualizations are okay. In one case, it would not matter where you are located, the marks will be only associated to a point independently and identically. It might not be identical, but it might be independent from each other. When it will not be identical, or when it will be not be independent, when it will matter where you are located. Is this what you were asking, or something still remains?
Yes, sir. Okay, I understood. So but just can you once like try to define what is remaining invariant in the homogeneous invariant? Like invariant, like is it some kind of mean that is remaining invariant, or some statistical property which is like
Right.
distribution?
So
And similarly, in the other part, like when we say independent, so like you give a glimpse of the two events A and B which are like independent, so that which.
mhm. So let us imagine a point process consisting of only 2 points in all realizations, right? So this means that, suppose you are located at the origin, right? So this is your location, right? And you have in one realization 2 points randomly located around you, right? In another realization, you have the same points located somewhere else, right? Something like this. The entire point process consists of infinite such realizations, okay, in which in each of them these points appear or occur at any given let's say coordinates, right? Now, what do I mean by independent properties or independent marks? Which means that, suppose I name them let's say S11 and S, or X11 and X22, right? What does 11 and 1 2 mean? It means that the first point of realization 1 and the second point of realization 1, right? Now suppose you are associating with them the result of a coin toss, right? Which means you are going to this first point, which is x11, tossing a coin, and associating with it a head or a tail, let's say a head, right? So now you are going to the second point, you are associating with the result of a coin toss, suppose it's a tail. Okay, now this property, that whether it's what is the output of this or what is the result of this coin toss, is a random variable in itself, which does not necessarily depend on where x11 and x12 is. Okay, so that's what I mean by independent. So it might happen that in the second realization, so suppose let's call it x21 and x22. Remember that there is, I mean, across these realizations there is no translation of properties, which means that it's not as if that this is the same point as this one which has occurred now at a different location. It is, you think about realizations as completely independent instances uh, of the scenario. Okay, now if you go to this point and again do a coin toss, suppose it comes as tails, and at this point it again comes as tails or something. So the mark here, which is qi, right? And due to our fixing of the fact that there are only 2 points, so there is only two uh, let's say instances of it, which is q1 and q2. Even for a given realization as well, this q1 and q2 are identically distributed, which means they occur as head with probability 0.5 and tail with a probability 0.5. That is identical and independent, which means whether x12 comes as head or tail does not depend on whether x11 comes as head or tail. So this is an example of how these marks can in itself be thought of as an independent random variable, not depending on where the points are located. So they are not only independent from the point process itself, they are also independent realizations of an identical distributions within themselves. Is this clear?
Yes,
I
sir.
I forgot what your first question was. I think this was the second question.
Yes, sir. The first was like invariant in homogeneous invariant. What is in
Right. Which properties remain the same? Okay. So I'll come to a formal definition of a point process at a later stage. It's a bit more complicated than what meets the eye at a first go. What it means is that you mentioned couple of statistical measures like mean, variance, and something else. So all such properties remain constant through translation. Okay, that doesn't mean that only moments, that mean, variance, let's say skewness or something like this. It means okay, informally, if you are thinking about a fixed Cartesian plane, this one, right, and around you, you are interested in the spatial configuration of a fixed bounded subset of the two-dimensional Euclidean plane. So let's call this subset A, right? Suppose you are interested in properties like inside of A, right? What is the probability that there are some number of points where they are located? And remember that this A is of variable size. That means we can make A infinitesimally small as we want, which means we can make A so small that it can contain only one point in itself. So which means we can make a point sized set, right? Now we are interested in all such configurations of point sized sets and the probabilities whether a point belongs to them or not, right? So all such probabilities remain invariant throughout translation and rotation. Okay, although it looks like a very complex thing in the sense that there would be, of course, infinite realizations of these sets, and even within one realization of such sets, there would be infinite possibilities depending on the configurations, right? Which means that even if you consider this easy case of 2 points in your point process, you can think about infinite subsets A inside this two-dimensional plane. And if you are going at it event by event, that whether in the first realization in set A1 whether a point is contained or not, in set A2 whether a point is contained or not, there is a massive amount of data sets that you are thinking about, right? But it is a theoretical construct to say that these probabilities or relative probabilities will remain constant throughout your translation and rotation. what we will be using are not these actual probabilities, but this very property that whatever this guy is observing, this guy, if we are dealing with a homogeneous point process, this guy located somewhere else will be dealing with the same things, right? As an example, in your cellular network, suppose you are trying to find out some characteristics of your signals, right? Which means how powerful your signal strength is, or what is the SNR that you are getting at where you are located, and let's say what is the data rate in Mbps that you are located. Statistically, if we consider, I mean, it will vary when you move, of course, because we are dealing with a fixed location of base stations. But if ideally the base stations were a Poisson point process, we will say that statistical properties of you located at your home is equal to the statistical properties of, let's say, someone else located at IIIT Delhi. So it's only this property that these relative probabilities and other properties and other statistical measures remain constant throughout translation. It's this property that we will use. We will not be concerned with what those actual probabilities are. Does this make a bit clear?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Mhm,
And this
mhm.
Sir,
final thing, sir, is there any code textbook that we are following? Like last time we
Yeah.
introduced a reference book, but like any
Mm.
reason or something like that.
Right. So, I mean, that's a good point to bring it up, because this notion, which I was introducing in this last 3-4 minutes, it has very rigorous definition in this textbook, which I had uploaded it. What I would upload probably after today's class is a tutorial which I am kind of following for some of these notions. At least you will have enumerated in that what are the topics which we will be covering. Unfortunately, throughout this course, we will be covering so diverse things that there is no one particular textbook associated to it. What I would do is, rather from today's class onwards, while I upload the videos and the PDF, I will just put the reference from where I have taken them. But again, since it's a graduate course, there will be many, I think about 40% of the content which is actually created by me. There is no place else. Okay.
sir,
Yes.
I had two things. So first thing,
Mhm.
so with regards to this type of a measure,
Mhm.
in a practical sense, if we evaluate the statistical measures at some point which is easier to compute due to some reason, we can extend those measures to another point, saying it should be similar due to the nature of this Poisson point process, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So means that's how it's supposed to. Okay. Sir, one more thing.
Not necessarily. So so since we are going with this assumption that all these points are somehow or quote unquote identical to each other in terms of the statistical measures, it necessarily means that it will not be easy in one point as compared to some other point, right?
That's also true.
Mm.
Sir, with regards to all this, yeah, do you have any tu- in the tutorial you mentioned, means
Mhm.
will there be any numerical problems we can solve on this so we can clear our concepts?
So I'll try as much as possible to discuss this numerical problems in class only. My target is to have at least 5-6 examples in every class. But what I would also be sharing with you is, let's say, example questions, okay, which you can solve yourself and send it back to me. So since the ad drop is already over, and since my declaration that there will be many quizzes, many people have dropped off, which is a good thing for a course like this. What I can do is set up this office hours now, right, which I did not do for DCS. Many people might know this. In the office hours, we can discuss the solutions for these uploaded questions. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I hope this part was clear. So any other doubt remains for anyone? So building on top of these marked point processes, we will briefly discuss today something called a palm distribution. Why briefly? Because we will not be using it in our, let's say, foreseeable future. We will come back to it at a later stage in our course. but I'll try to introduce this notion of palm distribution and what it means, and I will introduce from the perspective of these marks. But more importantly, we will be discussing properties of Poisson point processes, which we will be using in the initial days of our course, and see some numerical examples on it. So this is what I hope to cover in today's class. And in the next class, we will go into some live, let's say MATLAB simulations to generate a point process and associate properties with it and so on. Okay, so from next class onwards, we please, if possible, have ready a MATLAB terminal open with you. You can obviously code it in Python as well. It's not a problem, but I will be doing the demonstrations in MATLAB. So it would be best for all of us if we have the same platform. Okay, so in the next class, I will be showing how to simulate these things in MATLAB, and that will end this week. From the next week onwards, we will go directly into cellular networks. Okay, so that's a brief introduction to what we will be dealing in the next 3-4 classes. So let's start with the first topic which we have for the day, which is of palm distribution. So already I had introduced Poisson point processes, but palm distribution is something which is a bit more generic, which means that it applies to any point process. So I'll just give this introduction, and then we will move into more details about, in particular, for Poisson point processes. So what does a palm distribution mean? A palm distribution of a point process at any given location. That means a palm distribution is defined for a given location. Is its conditional distribution conditioned on the presence of a point at that location? What does that mean? That suppose you are considering a point process consisting of these points. Okay. Now, suppose this red X's denote the locations of your base stations. Okay. And similarly, these blue circles denote the location of users, which is mobile terminals. Okay. Again, I'm taking this example just to illustrate, but of course, it doesn't mean that these things hold only for cellular networks. It's a more general geometrical construct. Okay. So suppose these blue circles are your users. Now you want to measure what is the properties of, or what is the statistical properties of this point process given by red X's from the perspective of one of these blue circles. Okay. So what does that mean? Since again this red X's we will be dealing as homogeneous point processes, and I hope at this point everybody knows what homogeneous means, since I discussed it right now. What does that mean is that wherever we take this origin, right, this set of black lines, the properties of these red X's as seen from this origin of this black line should be the same. Okay, which means that without loss of generality, we can say that my perspective is here. Okay, I hope this part is clear. Okay, to repeat, since we are dealing with homogeneous point processes given by this red X's, it doesn't matter where we shift our perspective to. As a result, we can shift our perspective to any of these blue points. Okay, which means we will say that the origin lies at any of these blue points. Okay, now what we are interested in is a conditional distribution of some property, which means, let us take an example property, which means what is the distance distribution of the nearest red X. Okay, now previously when my origin was here, okay, it had some fixed statistical properties, which means that, okay, in this realization my nearest point is at, let's say, distance 5 meters, right? Of course, whenever you are imagining a Poisson or imagining a point process, you are imagining all the possible realization of this red X's, right? In this case, my nearest point is at, let's say, 8 meters. What I am interested in is this random variable, which is, let's call it D1. 1 represents the nearest point or the first point from the origin. which takes in values, random values like 0 to infinite, right, with certain probability density function. What I'm interested in is what is the nearest base station from the perspective of a user. Okay, or to make it more simple, let us consider this blue and this red points to constitute a major a combined point process, which means we are only interested in the location of the nodes. The nodes can be users as well as base stations, which means the union of these circles, right, union with the location of this x is, let us call this as the location of nodes, right? And if I am interested in what is the distance distribution of my nearest node from the perspective of a given node, right, this itself means we are conditioning on the event that a point is located at the origin. Okay, since our origin is shifting, which means that if I'm saying that what is the nearest point from, let's say, 1 comma 1, which means that I am interested in knowing the nearest neighbor distributions of a point of this point process from the perspective of a point located at 1 comma 1. Now remember that these things are happening with a probability of 0, right? Because if you fix a point 1 comma 1, fix a location 1 comma 1, the probability that a point lies in 1 comma 1 is 0, right? Because I mean it follows from your continuous random variable theory, right? So what is the probability that a continuous random variable takes a certain value? It's 0, right? So it's a bit difficult to say what would be the disjoint probability that there is a point located at 1 comma 1, or let's say the distribution that there is a point located at 1 comma 1 and the distribution of the nearest neighbor from it. Okay, this is of course something like, I mean these are very informal ways to write it, right? So this is nothing but what is the density of a function, density of a random variable d1, given that there is a point located at 1 comma 1 multiplied by the probability that you are located at 1 comma 1, right? Is this part clear? I'll go very slowly, okay, because there are a lot of things happening together. To repeat, what I am interested in is, suppose you are at this origin, right? And okay, this is not a blue point, so let's redraw these things. So suppose we are currently at the origin, we are neither users nor base stations. Okay, now what we are interested in is this joint let's say point process, which is the users combined with the base stations, which we are calling nodes. We are interested in the fact that, okay, from the perspective of a node which is located at 1 comma 1, what is the distance distribution to the nearest node? So what is the distribution of this random variable d1 from the perspective of a point located at 1 comma 1? This is of course can this joint distribution or this joint event, I mean this is the distribution and this is the event, right? This joint measure can be written as this conditional distribution that there is a point located at 1 comma 1 and the distribution of d1. We have to multiply it with the probability that there is indeed one point there. Okay, however these things occur with a probability 0, right? However, in case there is a point located at this given position 1 comma 1, the distribution is of course not 0, right? So therefore this kind of characterization fails, right? So there brings in this we bring in this notion of palm distribution, and again we will not discuss some examples right away, but I'm just making you aware of what are the let's say specifics of this palm distribution. So a palm distribution of a point process at a given location is its conditional distribution conditioned on the presence of a point at that location, right? Therefore the palm distribution represents how the point process would look when viewed from one of its points, right? It's useful in studying these properties of point process as observed from one of its points, right? Such as this distance of the point or the average number of points inside a circle of radius r. These properties in general can be interpreted as marks, right? So suppose if I go to this point located at 1 comma 1, and if I say that from its perspective the nearest node probably is this guy, is at a distance of 3 meter, we will say that a point located at 1 comma 1 has a mark 3 in this realization. Okay, so this can be studied from the perspective of marks. So the property becomes the distance, and the mark associated with the point becomes the value of that property, right? Mathematically, the palm distribution of any mark q, right, of a stationary point process. So let me just write it here. Mathematically, the palm distribution of the mark q for the stationary marked point process, let's call that point process phi, which means it consists of random vectors denoting the locations as well as some marks associated with them. In our example, the marks were simply the distance to the nearest node. The palm distribution is defined as, or it is denoted by probability 0 q0 belong to L. L is the property. This 0 denotes that we are conditioning on a point of the point process residing at a given location. For without loss of generality, as I explained, we can assume that point to be the origin or the given location to be the origin. That means conditional on the fact that there is a point located at that origin, we are investigating what is the distribution of that mark, right? So this is defined as the expected value of the sum of points belonging to that point process, which means xi belonging to some subset A of the two-dimensional Cartesian plane, and the indicator that the mark also has L, divided by the expected value of the total number of points belonging to A. Okay, now what does that mean? It means I'll give you a very simple example and it will be very clear. Okay, so suppose you are located at the center of your classroom. Okay, suppose this is your classroom, you are located at the center of it, and suppose by the point process a phi, which is, let's say, the unmarked point process, which means it is simply a set of random vectors or random positions xi. By this xi, I denote the location of your classmates. Okay, so suppose this is the location of your classmates, and if I say that qi denotes some properties of these points, which might be, for example, the height of your classmates. Okay, so qi can be a mark denoting the height of the points. Okay, so this is a very simple example in the sense that here qi actually does not depend on where xi is, but this might not generally be true. Okay, so here, for example, wherever your classmates are located doesn't really dictate how much high they are, right, or how much let's say how much height they have, right? This means that this marks qi form an independent random variable as compared to the location of these points. Okay, however, if we are interested in this quantity, let's call L equal to 10 meter. Okay, so what is the palm distribution of the mark being 10 meter? Okay, so L in our example is a particular value, and that's why it will be q0 equal to L. But that might not necessarily be true. L can be a set or a subset of the possible values, which means if you are interested in L equal to, let's say, between, let's say, 1 meter and 2 meter, which means what is the probability that height, given that you are located at the center of this room, the height of a certain number of people from your perspective has a height between 1 and 2, right? It is given by the probable or the expected value of the total number of points which lie in a subset A of this entire, let's say, or entire region which we are considering, who have a property which belongs to L, divided by the total number of points or expected number of points belonging to that set A. Okay, now suppose you are located here at the origin, and from your perspective this set A is this. Okay, so what is the palm distribution of the property 1, 2 from your perspective, given that you are located at the origin? It is, suppose you are generating these points at random across this room, then sometimes there will be some points generated inside this set A, sometimes there will be no points, 1 point, 2 points, up to infinite possible points, right? Out of those, you will count only the points which are satisfying this property and dividing it by the expected number of points. So the expected number of points lying inside A which satisfies this property divided by the expected number of total points which lie inside of A gives the palm distribution of that property. Is this clear, or there is some confusion? Or is it not clear at all? In which case we can try another way to explain it.
So, sir, we can say that out of all the points, I'm considering only those points which fall within my set and also satisfy the property. Rest of the
Right.
point I'm not considering.
Right, and the numerator and denominator have an expectation function taken with respect to it. Okay, so I'll give you an even simpler example, right? So suppose I qualify this property as probably the gender of these people. Okay, so they can be male or female, right? Let's assume for the purpose of this example that this Qi, this mark, which is their gender, can be male with a probability of 0.5 or female with a probability of 0.5, right? Now intuitively we know that the probability of this mark being a value should be 0.5, right? And it can be proven if you take a large scale simulation, which means from your perspective, if you fix these values set A or fix this set A or subset A of this entire region and generate points inside of it, right? And if I denote, let's say, by blue the males and by black the females, then suppose there are 3 points inside this subset A, right? In this case, you will, so suppose in this realization, the numerator will consist of 1, right? And we are interested in the probability that they are females, okay? And the denominator will consist of 3. Okay, you take expected value of all such possibilities, which means how many points are lying inside of this, and expected value of the numerator, that means how many points that are lying inside of this subset A that are satisfying that property, that is being female in this case. If you take this ratio, that will give you the palm distribution of that property. Okay, I hope this one clarifies it a bit more. Okay, in this case, however, since the property itself is not a function of the location, it's a very intuitive thing. Of course, this will evaluate into half. Okay, this expression would evaluate into half. However, if they are, and I'll probably at a later stage give you an example, a concrete example where the property itself depends on the location itself. As a homework, you can think about the previous example which we discussed in the last class, where the property of this point was the transmit power of the base stations, which dependent on how far the base station is located from you. Okay. Now, given that you are located at a certain point, you can think about a area around you and consider the points falling inside of that point and whether they are satisfying a certain property of the transmit power or not, and divide by the total divide it by the mean number of points that fall inside that region. That will be the palm distribution of that transmit power. Okay, with these three examples, I hope I have clarified what a palm distribution means, right?
So can you just go over once again what P naught means? Like we are assuming that every time there will be some point at the origin.
Right. So this might not always be true, right? So if we try to calculate this part similar to our traditional concepts of probability, we are at a we are facing a problem, right? Because the probability that there is a point at that location itself has a probability of 0, right? So as a workaround, so to say, or quote unquote workaround, we have this definition to describe the probability of properties, which means this still represents the probability of a property given that there is a point located at the origin. And for stationary point processes, I mean, origin means you can think about at any location because you can always shift your origin there, right? So this is the probability of a property given or conditional on the fact that there is a point located at the, or condition, not the fact, but conditional on the event that there is a point located at that particular location.
Okay, and so the expectation is over phi, right? Like different
Yes,
again.
yes. So in this case, the expectation, I mean, it depends on what Q is. Okay, this expectation is of course with respect to phi. This expectation is with respect to phi as well as Q. But since, I mean, it depends on what distribution you decide, because we are if we were fixing this male and female thing, which means the marks could have been either male or female, then it was not an expectation over Q, right? Because it was a fixed value of Q, which means what we are observing this subset A, right? And we are interested on those points. We will count those points which have a value female, right? In that case, this value was not a random variable, right? That was a fixed value. In that case, the expectation is only over phi in the numerator and only over phi in the denominator. However, if we were not dealing with such discrete, let's say, events, suppose this guy, which is the probability that the height is between 1 and 2, right? Then you have to take an expectation over I mean, there is a probabilistic distribution of being closer to 1 and not closer to 2 and so on. You have to consider that as well.
Procedure wise, like in this class, for example, if I had to calculate this expectation, though, I will take every student as one origin and calculate what this expression comes out to be, then that divided by the number of students in class, because those many instances will be there. And
right.
how those operationally I'm trying to see, like
That's the better way to say it, because we will come to theory later, but if you think about simulations or operationally or procedurally how you would be doing, what you are interested in is from you generate a point process which models the location of these people, and you go to each of this person and measure this property around it, right?
Okay.
Do it for all of these points, right?
Define
Have a
for
value.
A, right?
Sorry?
Like this, and we also have to define A, right? Which, like, because there's an element of A in this. So
Right, absolutely, yes. But in our example, which with this male and female business, A is a bit irrelevant, because any size of A you take, this would I mean evaluate into half, right?
yeah.
But not the other example where you take the power and these things. And this becomes all the more important when the property itself becomes a location dependent item. Is this clear? But we will come to these discussions later on. Don't worry about it. But it's just the purpose of, or after this discussion, you should be aware of this fact or convinced of this fact that conditional distributions of properties where the condition is on the event that a point is located at a given location is tough to calculate or is challenging to calculate using traditional notions of probability, specifically because we are dealing with a conditional event. The probability of that event itself is 0, right? So we cannot make calculate the probability of a property given an event equal to, I mean, traditionally using Bayes rule, how do you evaluate? You evaluate the joint probability and divide it by the probability of the event, right? Here the probability of the event itself is 0. So traditional Bayes rule does not allow you to do these calculations. So we have a new notional definition of this probability of certain marks or qualities based on the event that a point is located at a given location, and it is taken in this expected sense that you take an expectation of all the points which satisfies that probability and divide by all the points that lie inside your area of observation. That gives you the probability of this point, of this quality. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So with this, let's go back a bit and try to discuss what our Poisson point process was. So if you remember, there were two properties that a Poisson point process or a point process had to satisfy in order to be categorized as a Poisson point process. Can anyone recall what they were? Anyone? No? It was in the previous class, right? So how do you characterize a Poisson point process? When do you say a point process is a Poisson point process? And I'll keep on asking this again and again because I mean, even in last year's course, the entire course passed and people were still unsure about what this is. It's very simple. Yes, Vaibhav, we were about to answer.
Mark
Yeah.
is
Yes, sir.
Psi of
representing a Poisson process.
One at a time. One at a time. Yes, please.
Yeah, the mark is representing a Poisson process.
Sorry.
I'm saying the mark of the point process represents a Poisson distribution.
No, that's not the point. That will be a doubly random thing. Yes. Anyone else?
The,
so that
so
psi
the
of
condition is random counting measure is Poisson distributed when you
The random counting measure is Poisson distributed. Yes. Arnav, you want to say something else? I think.
and the second one is for M disjoint sets, the random variable of random counting measures are independent.
Right. So suppose we are observing a point process which is given by this x's, right? And what we are interested in is, suppose you choose a random closed subset of this domain, right? Which is given by this guy A. What we are interested in is the number of points belonging to A, right? This number of points belonging to A, we defined it as psi of A, which is the random counting measure of A. So this psi of A, if it has a Poisson distribution plus for two disjoint subsets, let's say A and B, psi A and psi B are independent random variables. If these two things are satisfied, then we define this point process denoted by this red x's as a Poisson point process. So Soradip, I think is it clear now? So there is not a inherent notion of mark associated to it. We are just interested on the random number which dictates the number of points inside a set.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So again, whenever you visualize a point process, imagine infinite realizations of it, which means you remove all your red x's, throw new red x's inside this plane, right? And you are interested in, across all such infinite realizations, how many points are coming or falling inside of A, right? The first property that must be satisfied is that the probability that psi of A is equal to K, right? This is given by the Poisson distribution, which means it is e to the power minus, let's say, some density times the area of A, let's say volume of A, or I think we had represented it by mu of A, times lambda mu of A to the power k divided by k factorial, right? Remember, we had ended the previous class at this point. Of course, there is another condition which goes along with it, which means for different disjoint sets, which means psi of B is a Poisson distributed random variable, psi of A is another Poisson distributed random variable, but psi of A and psi of B are independent of each other as long as A and B are disjoint. Okay, so I hope this again reinforces this notion that what is a Poisson point process is defined by Poisson point process is a point process in which, in a random closed subset of the entire domain, the number of points belonging to it is a Poisson distributed random variable. Additionally, for disjoint subsets, the number of points are an independent random variable. Okay, so the first property that we will be looking at for Poisson point processes is called Campbell's theorem. The proof of Campbell's theorem will be, I mean, it's not important for us for modeling wireless networks. Remember that we are always going to use these notions and map it back to cellular networks and in general other wireless networks. So we will not be interested in the rigor mathematically, so to say, but for the sake of completeness, I will be uploading this proof as a separate video. It will not form a part of your evaluation, or it will also not form a part of your syllabus, but I think it's important to be aware of this in case you want to do some fundamental work in this area. Okay, so proof will be uploaded as a separate video. However, once I state what Campbell's theorem is, you will automatically understand how powerful tool it is. Okay, so Campbell's theorem in general can be used to compute the expectation of a random variable f, which is denoted as the sum of point functions. Okay, so if you remember, in our previous class we had defined what type of what point functions are. Point functions are simply you go to each point and evaluate the function at that point. In the previous class we had taken the example of distance of these points, right? In that case we are going to each of these points and we are evaluating the distance of that point from the origin. So you have such point functions and you are interested in the sum of them. That means, let us define, so statement, suppose capital F is defined as a point function which is sum of point functions, the sum of functions evaluated at points where points belong to the point process, right? What we are interested in is the expected value of f. Okay, the problem statement is clear. What we are interested in is the expected value of sum of point functions. The challenge from our perspective are twofold. What are these twofold? As I explained in the previous class, first of all, we do not know how many points are there, right? Even if we had known how many points are there, where we do not know necessarily where they are located. There are infinite realizations of these things, right? So the Campbell's theorem states that the expectation of f, which is, to put it more elaborately, expectation of point functions. So this is basically the point function. Can be evaluated as an integral So this is true for a homogeneous Poisson point process. Okay. For homogeneous Poisson point process. Okay. So this can be evaluated as lambda, which is the intensity. I hope at this moment all of you are aware of what lambda is, right? Of the function evaluated at any generic point, right? And integrated across that point, right? The domain of the integration is the entire plane, or in our, from our perspective, it will be the R2 plane. Okay, without going into the proof, at this point, let me know whether you understand what this guy is. I hope you understand what this guy is. Okay, can anyone explain what this theorem states? We are not interested in whether this is true or not. At least let me know if there is a confusion regarding what this theorem states. Okay, is it clear for everyone? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, so let us take a simple example and see what this theorem states, and then we will go into a more concrete example pertaining to cellular networks. Okay, so suppose we are interested in a one-dimensional point process. At this point, in our the previous two classes, we had only discussed two-dimensional point process, but let's see a much more simpler version of it. Okay, so what are these one-dimensional point process? The one-dimensional point process are these points x located along the number line. Okay, and how do you define whether it's a point process or not? Again, I'm repeating myself, but I think this is important, is to say that if you take any subset of this one-dimensional domain, right? So let's, if for example we take a comma b, right, whether this guy is probably a and suppose this guy is probably b, the number of points which are lying inside a comma b is a Poisson distributed random variable with parameter b minus a, because b minus a will be the length of the domain. In the previous case, I mean, mu of b a comma b is b minus a. In the two-dimensional example, it was pi r square because it was circle, right? I mean, of course, if you take a square, it will be the area of the square, right? Is this part clear? Please interrupt me at any time with where you think anything is not clear, even if it's a very minor thing. Okay. So suppose we are located at the origin of the, or we are observing this point process from the origin of this number line, or of this one-dimensional domain, right? What we are interested in is the sum, right, of distances. Let's call it sum of xi, or here it's one dimension, so we can directly write mod of xi, right, of all xi's which, let's say, belong to maybe minus 10 to 10. So all x's which belong to the point process, part of the point process between minus 10 and 10. Okay, we are interested in the expected value of this quantity. So this quantity we can write it as f. Okay, so the question is clear. The question is, there are of course infinite possible realizations of this one-dimensional point process, and what we would be interested in all such realizations, right? And in all such realizations, we are observing from the perspective of the origin. In this case, let's call this guy as minus 10, this guy as 10. Let's make these two disappear, right? What we are interested in are the sum of the distances of all the points, which means that in the first realization, it's a sum of, let's say this guy is at, let's say 2, this guy is at 3, this guy is at minus 1. The sum of the distances is 6, right? 3 plus 2 plus 1. At this instant, it is, let's say, 1. This guy is at -2. The sum of distances is 3, right? In this instant, let's call this guy. This is at -0.5. This is at 1.5. The sum is 2. And similarly, there is only one point here, which is at -1. The sum is 1. We are interested in the expected value of the random variable, which takes on these values. Okay, between -10 and 10, the sum of distances. What it says, suppose this Poisson point process is dictated or defined by this intensity lambda. What this Campbell's theorem says is that since the sum of, or the expected value of this sum is difficult to evaluate, what you can rather evaluate, and it's equivalent, it's exactly equal, it's not an approximation, it's equal to lambda times the function evaluated at a random point or a dummy variable x. In this one dimension, it's simply mod of x, right? Integrated across the domain of your observation, right? Can you evaluate this for me? What this would be? Anyone? So since this is a symmetric function, you can obviously write it as 0 to 10 twice of x dx, right? So this becomes 2 lambda x square by 2 evaluated at 0 and 10, right? What does this mean? This becomes 100 lambda. Is this okay? There is some, please interrupt me if there is a calculation error. Okay. Now look at the beauty of this. Yeah.
Maybe it's homogeneous only. This statement holds for only
Yeah,
homogeneous.
yeah. There are, I mean, there are generic forms of the Campbell's theorem, of course, but for our course, we will be only interested in this. Okay, but while I prove it, sorry, while I upload the proof, you will see that at which point we are invoking the concept of homogeneity. Okay, I mean, can you try to guess what would be the case for non-homogeneous Poisson point processes? What would be the statement for it? So how do you define a non-homogeneous process?
Maybe it will be the ratio of, I mean, the lambda will be replaced by the ratio of mean and size.
Some, I mean, your first intuition is correct. So
Which will be a function which will like be
yes,
x.
exactly. So a non-homogeneous point process would be governed by an intensity which is not constant everywhere. Is this, do you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Right? So suppose an example of a non-homogeneous, or a realization of a non-homogeneous Poisson point process, suppose it's something like this, right? Of course, this has practical examples, which means suppose this is your city center, right? The location of the base stations are more dense around the city center and sparse as you move away from the city, right? There, if you are observing a larger network which consists of all the base stations of a particular network operator throughout one city, probably if you go to the city center, right? Just one second. Yeah, probably if you go to the city center, you would have more density of base stations around you, and if you go to, let's say, suburban and rural areas, there are very sparsely located base stations. This means such a point process is dictated by an intensity which itself is a function of the distance or the point located, point considered. Yes, so lambda x probably in this case is very high when mod of x is low, and lambda x is very low when mod of x is high. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. So I don't know, like, is this what like they say when they say like we need to like modernize rural areas, like increase the intensity of base stations?
Yeah. I mean, that we will come to these aspects at a later stage in our course. I mean, first we are just trying to study a network. Okay, we study a network, then we characterize the network in terms of these measures. Then we go into solutions. What do we want to do about it? Okay. At this point, we are only interested in, suppose, I mean, I'll give you a even smaller or smaller perspective, which means that we'll look at a very, I mean, geographically a smaller network, which means suppose that this is a Wi-Fi hotspot. Okay. When citywide Wi-Fi hotspots became popular in the beginning, people tried to accumulate around that hotspot for a better signal. Okay. These guys who might not be running very, I mean, very necessary applications which do not need a very good internet connectivity. So the useful users from the perspective of the hotspot are, let's say, quote unquote, accumulated around it. Okay. So this in stochastic geometry terms is called clustering, which means such points cluster around a center. Okay. So such kind of, now it's not, let's say, it's not valid anymore to assume that the density of these points is the same everywhere, which means if you are looking at a subset A, the same size subset located at, suppose, here, would have a larger density, right? This guy. As a result, the intensity of this point process becomes an entity which is dependent on the location itself. In that cases, this lambda would be replaced by lambda times x, lambda of x, which means lambda evaluated at x. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
I'll give you an example of this as well. Okay, so let's focus a bit in the beginning only on homogeneous Poisson point process. But again, a correction, it's not entirely true that we will be only dealing with homogeneous Poisson process. While discussing this example, I realized that at a later stage we will be discussing such Wi-Fi hotspots as well, which are definitely not homogeneous. But the purpose of this example, you can now see the beauty of this Campbell's theorem, or the beauty of this theorem, because now only with a parameter lambda you can say that what is the expected value of the distances of random points. We do not remember that we have come to this point without even knowing how many points occur within this in a given realization. We only know the probabilistic occurrence of them, right? This itself denotes the sum of distances of such points, right? So suppose lambda equal to 0.1, which means what? On an average, every 10 meters there is a point, right? Which means, so lambda represents the number of points in unit dimension, right? So in every 10 meters there is 1 point on an average, right? So the average distance of all such points within -10 and 10 across all the infinite realizations of the point process, the mean of it is 10, which is 100 multiplied by 0.1. Okay, so let me give you another example to, so this, let's call this as just one second. Yeah, example. Yeah.
So by this, are we finding out like my average number, indirectly finding my average number of points within an area or this distance?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
So by using this Campbell's theorem, am I finding indirectly the number of points within my area? Because as you said, there is 1 point at every 10 meters.
Yeah.
So
So that's also one application of Campbell's theorem. Yes, you can also find the average number of points within an area using Campbell's theorem. Okay, but that's not the only thing that you can calculate. Okay, let me reinforce that point with another example. Right. In the previous example, we had calculated the distance of those points, not only the number of points, by the way, number of points on an average. So you can try to find this out. Okay. Can you use Campbell's? Okay, I'll give it as homework. So use Campbell's theorem to prove what Vaibhav was suggesting. So use Campbell's theorem to prove that the mean number of points in a set of size mu of A is lambda times mu of A. In particular, if mu of A is of unit size, which means in 2 dimensions it's a circle, let's assume with a unit area, it can be any convex set, okay, it can be a square of unit area or whatever. In 1 dimension, it's just of unit length, right? So try to prove using Campbell's theorem that the number of points, right, lying inside this set of unit size, right, is lambda, right, because mu of A will be 1. Okay, I'll end today's class with a my goal always has been that not to get too much let's say mathematically abstract and bring you back again and again to the examples of cellular networks. So let's discuss a practical example of this. So what our goal is to find the mean interference. So find the mean, so this is a separate thing, okay, mean interference at the origin from base stations located in the ring A, given by the distance of them to be between small a and small b. Let's do this, where we assume that base stations are distributed according to a homogeneous Poisson point process phi with intensity lambda, right? And we will use our previously developed square law, path laws, and constant transmit power, which means what we are trying to achieve is that we are trying to find out the mean interference at this location, which is the origin, right? From, so suppose base stations are given by this red axis, okay. Again, think about infinite realizations of such red x's, which means not only the numbers by infinite realizations, it doesn't mean that the number of x's are infinite. It means that there are infinite such networks with different configuration of x's, okay, and so on. I know I am repeating myself, but I think this visualization is important. There are infinite such realizations of this x's, and they are governed by some, or they are defined or modeled according to this Poisson point process. What we are interested in is a ring between A and B, which means there is a distance A. Let's call this A. And there is another distance B. Let's call this guy B. So this guy becomes A. What we are interested in is the sum of interference coming from base stations located within this ring of A to B. Okay, I hope this question is clear. Practically why it is important, because as we will learn later on, there are some coordination strategies which can be employed, which means that within an A, probably the base stations do not create an interference. So if I denote by this blue X your serving base station, which means you are connected to this base station, maybe this base station has some coordination mechanism according to which the base stations located within this A do not create an interference. On the other hand, base station located beyond B, which is outside of this, they are too weak to matter anyway, right? So in this example, what we are interested in is the mean of the interference that is coming from all the base stations that are located between A and B, distances A and B. Okay, so how do we write it? We write it as I, which is the interference between this set A, which is again A is nothing but between A to B. So IA, similar to before, in our previous example, we saw the distances between -10 and +10. Here there are two dimensions. So what we're interested in the summation of xi vector, all the points which belong to the point process union, or sorry, not union, intersection of A less than equal to the points less than B. Okay, and what is the quantity that we are interested in? Remember, in previous class we had discussed how the received power behaves at this origin. Can anybody recall that if there is a base station located at a distance of xi from the origin, what would be the received power from it? This was discussed in the last class, right? Yeah,
T by r square.
right. So
There is
P,
one square.
sorry, yeah, xi square.
Can see that.
Right, there are of course other constants involved, but we are, I mean, let's not focus on this. All the constants are, let's say, taken care of by this P. For the moment we are only interested in this transmit power P, which includes inherently all the other constants. And if a base station is located at a distance of xi, the interference received from it is P by xi square. We are interested in this quantity for all those xi's which belong to the point process and are also located within A to B. Yes? Is this part clear? Now what we are interested in?
Yes, clear.
Yeah. Hello? Any point?
No, I said clear, sir. I understood. Yes.
Okay, okay. So what we are, the question is to find out the expected value of IA. Okay. Now using Campbell's theorem, can you try to find out what IA would be?
Lambda p by 1 by a minus 1 by b into
So lambda
p
P
into 1 by a minus 1 by b.
1 by A minus 1 by B. Are you sure?
So should it be lambda times pi b square minus pi a square?
Sorry, lambda times
Pi b square minus pi a square.
pi b square minus A square. Okay, there are many options now. 1, 2. Someone else? Okay, we have to have a fourth. None of the above. I have position for one more. Any other suggestions? So let's try to first write the first step. Okay, so Campbell's theorem, what does it say? It says this can be evaluated as lambda times P by a generic x, right, to the power 2, right, for dx, right, belonging to A to B, not A to B in general, but remember that this is a it's not, I mean, this x is not a one-dimensional element, right? It's a two-dimensional element. So basically what we are interested in, all the distances between 0 to, sorry, A to B, and all the angles between 0 to 2 pi, right?
Is there an optional? Maybe there is also term of 2 pi. I missed that. Like we have to.
Okay, so 2 pi lambda P 1 by A minus 1 by B. Yeah. So let's for the moment focus on this. This is what we can write it as. I mean, of course, here we will not be writing it as. I mean, x is not a. I mean, we have not divided it into the radial and the angular domain, right? We have not divided into the polar coordinates. So let's try to be a bit more theoretically rigorous and write the integral over all r square, but we will only be considering the parts or indicator function that a is less than equal to x is less than b and all dx. Okay, so from here we can say if we convert into polar coordinates, expected value of IA. So x in polar coordinates, how would you write it in polar coordinates? Dx in polar coordinates becomes, come on, this is from class 12, right?
df
d
and
theta.
theta.
R dr d theta. Yes,
D theta.
yes, that's
Ah,
true. And mod of x becomes,
So then option 1 will become ln b by a, I guess.
yes, we are getting there. Let's go step by step again. Mod of x becomes,
आर हो जाएगा
sorry,
आर आर
r. Yeah. So expected value of IA is now lambda times 0 to no, sorry, a to b, 0 to 2 pi, yes, p by r to the power r square, right, r dr d theta. Yes, let's try to write one more step, which is there is nothing inside going on with respect to theta, so 2 pi lambda a to b p by r dr. I will stop at this point, and I will, from in the next class, I will begin with a important, very important point, which probably Hamza, being a PhD student, might know already. Why we have to assume the path loss coefficient in path loss coefficient means this guy. Sorry, path loss exponent. The path loss exponent in real world networks greater than 2, not exactly equal to 2. We will begin with this example, and we will start with the facts, what or the special cases, what happens when a equal to 0. Of course, if you evaluate this, as I think Badri already pointed out, it becomes log of r evaluated at a and b, right? This becomes 2 pi lambda p, what becomes log of b minus log of a, right? We will start with special cases when a is probably less than 1. Yeah, when a is less than 1, does it become negative? Yes, it becomes negative. We will go into special cases and see why in real world cellular networks this path loss exponent is taken to be something which is greater, strictly greater than 2 and not exactly 2. Okay, any questions regarding this final development, what Campbell's theorem tries to do, and what are the different type of things it can help us to evaluate? Please try to upload this as a homework. I will try to create it as a quiz inside your classroom. Don't be afraid, it's not a quiz which will be a part of your assessment. It's simply for you to try to work it out and upload it for me to check as well how you are doing in the course. But maybe we can look at some other examples in the next class to again elaborate on this Campbell's theorem. Any questions? If there are none, I think we can stop the class today. Thank you.
Hello. Excuse me, sir.